Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Bristol School Board. Begin with our roll call. I'm Darren Carlucci, Becky Cooper.
Here.
June Donenfeld is absent. Amelia Logash here. Catherine Thompson.
Here.
And then we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any agenda adjustments this evening? Public comment. Welcome, public. All right, hearing none. We have two presentations this evening. Our audit, and then we have Mr. Burrows from Lincoln Academy. We'll start with you, Mr. Burrows.
Sure. That's great. Who's control this?
Oh, I don't know. Good question.
You are excellent. Okay, great.
You bound that way.
Well, I could. Nobody's question. I'll stand up here.
I'll start silence.
Yeah, perfect. I'll stand up with this. Bring along. Okay, so I'm Pastor at Lincoln, excited to be here. It's been a couple of years, I think, since we've been here. Plus, I talked to Bristol a couple of weeks ago, so we're working on making sure we get to all the AOS schools, and just gonna give you some overview, some things about Lincoln, just a little presentation and some data, and I hope that it'll ask, you'll ask me some questions that I can come back and talk more about. We value our relationship with Bristol, and this is just the beginning of making sure that we're doing right by the students that come to that choose Lincoln. So the agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of the unique model that Lincoln is. We're an independent school, but obviously we're funded by choice students from all over up and down the peninsula in a number of different places. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're accredited, so that's important to talk about. We'll talk a little about funding mechanisms and the structure, and we'll share some specific data that I have about Bristol and their students. We're in the middle. We're an interesting group. We're called a town academy. We're actually called a lot of different things. This is a model that is unique to New England. Maine has 10 independent town academies. Vermont has 4. New Hampshire has 2. Connecticut has 1. So it's a weird model. Lots of schools were started and Lincoln was started before 20 years before Maine was even a state. So with the idea that you're gonna serve the students there, and as history came along, the decision was, let's keep supporting Lincoln Academy as the high school of choice, and not build a public school. So there you go. Again, in terms of how we're described and what we're talked about, there are a number of different ways they describe us in statute. So we are certainly called private. We are also called a 60-40 school, which means that more than 60% of our students are publicly funded. And there's a further delineation in statute that is schools that have 80% or more. And so currently this year, we're about 89% of our students come from one of about 16 different towns that have choice, if you will, because they don't have a public high school. And the 11% includes private paid day students as well as boarding students. Okay. We already said this. Lincoln Academy was founded before Lincoln before Maine was a state, and it's always been coeducational. So it's kind of an interesting fact. But Abigail's wife Abigail said, "Why pay all the attention? Why not pay attention to the fairer sex? They should be educated too." So thanks to her, we've always had hasn't been co-equal, to be clear, but we've always had coeducational education. A little about the difference. You can see that here is a public school board. It's a public meeting. We are like a nonprofit, private. We have a private board of trustees, and I'm the sole employee of that board. And then the faculty, staff, and families are underneath us. Currently, our board of trustees, I think, encompasses almost all the towns that we have kids from sending, and we also have public school representatives. A couple of them. One, obviously, Jen is on our board, as well as Sam Belknap is on our board too. So a couple of folks that are involved in the public school arena. But that, just in terms of the different superintendents typically have more than one principal underneath them, and more than one board to work with. So We're accredited by three different ways. Obviously, we have to have our 501(c)(3) nonprofit status upheld. We're also accredited by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and we're accredited by the Maine Department of Education. We're accredited as private school for tuition purposes. If you want to get geeky about the education statute, and the NEAS accreditation that we do is one of the steps in the statutes that allows us to have more control over how we certify our own teachers. We don't, at Lincoln, we don't take advantage of the opportunity to certify them separately from the state. All of our teachers are certified by the state or in the process of. So those are the three different ways. Talked a little bit about that already, and we are approved for tuition for this year. It took a lot longer than I thought. Just some big picture question, big picture revenue, in terms of how this is this year's budget. So you'll see the big chunk on the revenue side, about 69% of our revenue, and about $11.5 million budget comes from day tuition, okay? And you look at the big chunk on our expenses, about 67% of that is salaries and benefits and taxes for our employees. So the money that we get from the public funds pays just about covers our expenses for employees. So the rest of it, we have to figure out how to raise. The only difference there is that special education, which is about 9%, is a complete pass-through, and it's billed on based on last year's costs over this year's students. So we're recovering costs from the year previously. So that part of the revenue and expenses is a wash, if you will. But then you can see the other chunks of private pay and boarding tuition is the next biggest chunk. We raised about $350,000 in annual funds to help cover. We have some endowments that most of our endowments are actually structured for graduation kinds of things, so they're not particularly helpful, but we do draw about 160 grand a year from other endowments that we have that can help go to operating non-restricted funds or unrestricted funds. Any questions about any of this so far? Okay. Got some just simple data about Bristol. They've got in this year's group, there are 91 students here at Lincoln from Bristol. That's about 15, I guess that's about 15% of the total student body. We're over 600 students for the first time in probably about 15 years, I think. So that's been a nice bump. The day student population came in about 17 students more than we had projected based on our look into the pipeline. And we have about 11 or 12 private paid day students, so students from towns that don't have choice that are paying to come to us. So that number is up for us as well. About 22 of them participate in some sort of fall athletics. 8 of them are students at Bath Tech. So you know the technical region that supports our students for career and technical education is Bath. That's not I have nothing to do with that, just so you know. I don't even have a role in it. It has to do with the towns, and you guys actually have more say in it than I do. So, but we're proud of that relationship, and that's been important for us. There are 9 kids that are in theater this year, or music, and then 17 are enrolled in an AP class. So just so you know that there. About 50-50 male-female split, and then that's just another way of looking at the things that the kids are involved in. Students with IEPs, looks like there's about 12% of the students from Bristol in the current population that have some sort of individualized education plan. Any questions on that? On the makeup of students and what we're seeing in this year's class? One of the things that we're doing, we actually split our power school from the AOS almost 2 years ago now. And so we're just starting to get control over all the data fields and try to figure out how we can be more responsive to the needs of our ascending schools, but also to try to really do a better job of tracking data for our own use. And so we're gonna have really good data going forward from last year. The older data is harder because the fields don't map. They don't map anymore because we're adding fields, we're using them differently than the shared resource that when we were working with AOS, but we should be able to do a lot better, I'll call it deep dives into things with different socioeconomic indicators, different kinds of things that might be important to look at in terms of how kids are faring when they get to Lincoln from Bristol. Okay. And again, these are students that are paid for from Bristol, may not necessarily have gone to Bristol school, right? Because it's a residency. But just so you know that.
Homeschool kid.
That makes sense.
Lots
Yeah.
of moves, I think, coming out.
Right. Yeah, right. So so to be fair, that's true. They don't necessarily represent students that came here, but we'll be able to do that going forward, be able to track that. Another just piece of information, the graduation rate by the state versus Lincoln County versus the state of Maine. We've been above that the last since 1920. And so the way they calculate graduation rate is a little weird in terms of my understanding of it's the population coming in that starts in a certain year and then starts in a certain time in a year and then finishes next year. There's also a 4 and 6 year graduation rate, or 5 and 6 year graduation rate. I think it's calculated a little differently, but just one statistic that is something to think about. What questions might you have? Yes.
So I was curious about the falling graduation rate, and is that anything to do with COVID?
Yeah, it's probably has something to do with it in terms of that, again, how they calculate it based on the number. My understanding is on October 15th, there's a count, and then of those kids that finish, and that's an important indicator. We definitely had some issues around COVID and around certainly at the years after COVID getting back into school. So, but I couldn't say for sure without digging deeper into that. Yes,
It looks like the state's going up a little bit.
yeah,
And then do you know what percentage of Bristol students are graduating?
I don't, and but that's an important piece of data that we'll be able to get to, right, as we move forward, but it's certainly something that I hope to do. The other thing would be, I think an important piece of data would be the cohort graduation rate, right? So because kids have choice, they may come to us, they may leave and come back to us, or they may come to us, drop out, get themselves sorted out, and then come back to us. And so that's also an important thing, because again, if you're calculating graduation rate based on who shows up in their senior year and then finishes, you're missing some of those kids. And I think that's a better indicator for our communities, because we all know that some of the issues that the kids have in elementary school will follow them to high school, and a lot of the graduation rates are affected by literally just attendance, right? Our biggest problem at Lincoln, and perhaps that's true here with you, is once you get a kid who isn't coming, how do you get them to start coming? And some of that's transportation, some of that's, there's lots of things that go into that issue. But it's an important thing to really work hard on. So hopefully we'll get some better information on that too. Yes.
Is there any information that you have about kids getting their GED through the adult ed program or anything?
Anecdotally, yeah. So the last 2 years, we've had a couple kids do that each year. Last year, we actually had a student graduate from Maine has an alternative diploma program as well. So we had a student do that as opposed to just the high center or GED. But yeah, it's a small number. It's usually 1 or 2 in a year. Most of the kids that we get in their senior year will finish and will graduate.
Thank you.
Other questions, other things that would be interesting to talk about?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, working with the AOS 93 with data.
Yep.
Now this year, got RSU 48 coming in.
We do. Yep.
And maybe next year, probably next year, we'll have another split off for
Yep.
ESC.
Right.
And was all this stuff compatible, or it's they just add another
Yeah,
button?
I think so. I mean, the benefit, there are 2 issues that happened when we split. The first one was there was no automatic transfer over, right? So one of the things that used to happen, just all the kids that were here just rolled into our data system, and it was, in terms of enrollment, that was easy. So that was one thing that's different now. So we've made a lot of push to say, hey, show up and register and, come and think about it. But we also are pushing hard to let folks know you have a choice, right? I mean, obviously, you almost got to drive by Lincoln to go somewhere else, but it's important, right? If you have a student, a person who wants to be in a different crowd and doesn't want to be with all their friends at Lincoln, then they should look at Menominee and Erskine and Morrison, whoever else, or Blue Bay or Wisconsin. So we're trying to make sure that happens. And then the data sharing, I think, it'll be a little easier in the sense that we collect our own data, we'll be able to feed that back to you. So we'll be able to be a little more specific on things that you might be interested in. So I don't think it'll be an issue no matter how many different groups are, on their own or whatever. Structure ends up being, we'll be working with it, it doesn't matter to us, so we're happy to support in any way, but I haven't gone to GSP yet, that'd be next, but. Good question. Other things that might be interesting tonight, or questions tonight, or things that you'd like me to come back and talk about? Interesting to you as a board.
And they can funnel questions through me too.
Yeah, you come up with things you wanna talk,
Well, I guess it'd be interesting knowing like, what you're doing to like improve the graduation rate.
yeah.
Where it's coming down, I mean, it's at 89% about 80%.
It's about just under 90, I think, yeah. So I think there are a couple things that we do, and I don't think these are different than at other schools, but I can't represent that. We have a number of programs that help kids finish, right? So we have an alternative education program that starts in their junior year that allows them to do credit recovery and just figure out how they can do school better. We also have an AP schedule, which we're one of the last, although more still doesn't have it, we have an AP day schedule that's like Madomic, and so allows kids to take 4 classes one day and take the other 4 the next day, and so that's allowed us to have a lot of different variability in how we help kids stay connected to high school. One of the things that we've done, not only about 52 or 53 students go to Bath Tech every year in their junior and senior year, we've also started community-based learning experiences. So we have about 22 young people that are currently working in some capacity at an area of business right now. So they're coming to school and then they're going to work with Colby and Gale or Coast Energy or the First National Bank. And so we're trying to help, not only help the kids that are on their way to post-secondary, but also help the kids that are gonna be here, they're gonna return here to have some real connection to the community in an important way. Because I don't think my job is necessarily workforce development, but I do think my job is to help make sure the kids understand what's available for them in the community in terms of post-secondary employment. And we've done the job fair the last 5 years where we've brought in over 40 businesses, and they have to have a job that a high school senior could get, and they can have some of the other opportunities they want, and that's been really popular. So those are a couple of things we're trying to do. How do you keep, the biggest problem is a kid who won't come to school,
I know.
right? And they're older and mom can't, or dad can't pick them up and put them in the car and get them there. Those are the top kids for us right now. And many of them would be familiar to you, or at least problems would be familiar to you. And that we address through really trying to be more, we have a student support team that we track, I don't know, anywhere between 150 and 200 kids in various states of need every week. And so we're trying to stay on top of it. I think one thing that we could do better would be partner with our sending schools in a way that's appropriate to share some sort of information that would say, hey, these are some things that might help you with Johnny or Susie as they come in, or Johnny and Susie's parents need this kind of support and they may not tell you. So those are some things I think would be helpful too.
That's nice to hear that you're working with local businesses on getting kids involved in the local, as you know, the labor shortage is real here. And every summer I try to reach out to hire local young people and you just don't get applicants. So I'd be interested in the.
Yeah, do it. It'll be early April. You can contact me, or Heather Hippolito is Director of Community Engagement, and and we have a job board too. So anybody has jobs, whether it's summer jobs or things that need to be done, we have a job board for that too.
Local kids into the local workforce.
Oh, yeah, no, it's critical, and the kids want to do it. That's the other thing. When you see them connect with, oh, that's Mr. Jones, he's my softball coach, but he also runs the electrical repair shop. That makes a difference, right? We're not just telling them, hey, we want you to do this job, fix these widgets. We're trying to connect them with things that they understand, because a lot of these young people are gonna think that they're either gonna stay here after graduation. About 25% of our kids will not go to post-secondary, or they'll return here, right? Whether it's the summers or long-term afterwards, this is a beautiful place to live, and a lot of them have deep connections. I mean, we have 4 and 5 generations of families every year in school, so I think it's an important part of what we're trying to do.
In the past, there were opportunities for middle school teachers to sort of hook up with the LA teachers and at least once a year to share information back and forth about curriculum, et cetera. Is there anything like that going on?
We just had the band, all the area band and chorus folks got together just in one of our recent PD days. Math seems to be one of the easier ones to talk about. Some of the others are a little harder to do that vertical teaming work. And I think, yes, so we're always interested in doing it. It's also hard, right? You don't want to set up a situation where people feel like they have to meet the expectations of whatever the high school is, right? So I think we want to make sure.
That was real.
Yeah, we
It's
really,
also very helpful,
yeah,
have conversations with people,
Yeah.
come away with something.
sure. Right, yeah, and so we love what the schools do, right? I think one of the other things that is unique about Lincoln is that kids find a place there. I mean, there's a reason why we have more kids there now than we've had in a long time, even though the demographic is going down. Part of it is people are moving to this area because it's beautiful. The second part of it is the small community schools that they are coming from make them comfortable when they come to Lincoln. And it's just this idea that you already have a diversity amongst your student body. And so when they get to school, they don't worry about it, right? You'd be amazed, when I was in high school way back in the 80s, right? What you wore made a big difference, right? And I see every morning kids, guys coming in, pulling traps and wearing their boots right into school. They don't care. Nobody gives them a hard time about it either. And that's true about whether they're in drama or music or sports or academics. And that I think starts in the local community schools. There's a real embrace of everybody and difference in a way that I think is really important. So keep doing what you're doing, because I think that's really important. It makes our job easier, for sure. Anything else that would be interesting to talk about tonight? Questions? You have other business to do, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'll leave you to that. Thank you for your time, and certainly if you have things you want me to come back, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Our next presentation is our FY 23 audit. Mr. Brewer.
All right, so you have your bound reports up there
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yes, sir.
So let's start back. Everything consolidated as we move forward, so look at page 30.
Or two, been around this audit, been no stuff, so digital.
Going. Thanks, Jim. Sorry. Okay.
All right, page 30.
Yes, that works. Scott's involved.
So this is the federal funds that were expended from during the school year. So if you look, the top part is what essentially the school lunch program took in, so it's $51,000. Had some funds, leftover funds from the Department of Treasury, and then the rest was all came from DOE. So you had about $456,000, and most of that was the ESSER funds. So at the end of the day, you spent $517,000 in federal money operating the school, and most of that was all related to COVID, so. Cover staff costs and things in schools. Moving forward, page 29. This one's always a little confusing because it's one of those ones that the DOE requires. So basically what we're doing is reconciling the information that was submitted to DOE, what is actually in the audit. So it's just it has absolutely nothing to do with any of the journal entries that we posted to the school. Because of timing, a lot of times it gets submitted before a lot of the numbers are finalized and then sent to us, so. That's part of the issue, and then whatever journal entries we post during the year, so. That is the one laws required for UE. Moving forward, schedule B3, page 28. So. This is your free, reduced, full price meals. And what the thing was, everything was free, so your participation rates are significantly higher than they ever had. But the thing that kind of surprised me was how close your breakfast program was, but your lunch program was up a little bit, so.
Yeah.
It's good to see the participation, because that's usually, equates to whatever your subsidy is. So if you go to page 9,
Page 9.
yep, more toward the front, so this is the school lunch program. So this is the revenue and expenses, and the focus of governmental accounting standards is the net cost to the taxpayer. So in this, it's focused on what did you actually take in from whatever you served your customers. So it's mostly whatever the teacher paid for their meals, because the state paid for anything else, or the general fund would have the cost, so. You had $656 in receipts, and then $1,693 in miscellaneous sales, so catering. So you had $2,300 in revenue. And then you generated $168,000 in expenses. So in my eyes, a lot of people see that big number and say, oh, no, we're not doing well. Well, you gotta look at the rest of it in the non-operating revenues, because you pick up the donated commodities, which is about $9,700, the nutrition subsidy, which is $135,000, and then you transferred in about $21,000 to make sure that the school lunch program was whole. So at the end of the day, that ends at 0, and it covered the $168,000 in expenses. So if you look at the expenses, the biggest increases were in your health insurance and your food costs, which really wasn't unusual. Especially the food costs. Back then, there were a lot of things that were increasing rapidly, so. So that's the school lunch program. So I go back to page 27. So these are all your grant monies, so you've got all the federal ones, which we talked about those already. And then you had a few other grants, whether it was NLTI or CSML. And then also as part of this, you pick up Compass and school psychologist, and then the student activity fund. So in reality, you only had your federal monies plus the NLTI and the CSML, and most of those are, you've expended all of them, so it's just an in and out. And
What
so,
is CSML, sorry, for that.
that was computer science.
Okay.
Math learning, something like that.
I think that was the cards that were, just some check cards that were.
Grant, yes.
Yeah. But any more questions on that? Page 26. So this is the student activity funds. So this is the cash that is housed here at the school, so it's the kids' money. So they'll do fundraisers, biggest revenue generator was the 8th grade, biggest spender was the 8th grade, not a surprise. So at the end of the day, you have about $37,000, so the funds the students had at the school was a little bit higher. So just keep in mind that these funds are the kids. I usually try to impress that upon people, this is the kids, so it should be used for the kids and the kids only, so. Questions on that, moving forward, page 28. So it's a little confusing because you actually have budget for a lot of your federal programs, so you can see the original budget, final budget. And then what the actual spent revenues and expenditures were.
You said 28, I think it was
25.
25.
Sorry about that. So this can be a little confusing because it's a lot of information that is required because you've adopted budgets for those programs, so. Page 24, this is your shared speech and school psychologist. So these programs are pretty much breaking them, so there's a little bit of money left, but not hardly any, so. That one, and then pages 22 and 23 are the public program. So you can see your funding was from the 4 schools and then, transferred the local entitlement. So it's a $614,000 for revenue, $14,000 for expenses, so that's just a look for now. Schedule A1. So this is the meat and potatoes for me. This is the part that I really like to look at because it's pretty much the detail of the budget. So you can see all your different cost centers. And also how you did relative to your budget. So we have a column for the original budget, which is what the taxpayer approved. The final budget, which takes into account the transfers that you approve, to help cover any overdrafts. And then your actual numbers, whether it's revenues or expenditures. So you can see all the different accounts and see which ones, the budgets were close and which ones they weren't. If you want to see a summary, you can just go to page 8. So this is by each of the individual cost centers. So you can see at the top, the actual for the local appropriation, your state subsidy, then your main state retirement on behalf payments, which you don't budget, which that's the money that the state's putting in for the teacher's retirement. Only give you about $300,000, and then there's some miscellaneous sales refunds. So if you look at the budgets, regular instruction, right around 2.7 million, special ed was over $1 million, and you get other instruction of 71,000, student and staff support was at 293. System admin 145, school admin is 291, transportation was 479, facilities maintenance was 389. Got some other expenditures of 4,300, and then there's that on behalf payment that you show revenue and expense. So your total cost to operate the school is about $5.7 million. That's just the regular operations of the school, or the general fund. So you started with $920,000 in fund balance, and then you ended at $866,000. So that 866, if you go ahead 2 more pages to page 6. You have that column that's to the left of the general fund, so you can see down at the bottom, there's fund balance. So there's 4 different types of fund balance. There's restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. So as a board, when you developed your budget, you said we're gonna take $500,000 and reduce what we're asking the taxpayer. So that is that assigned number. The number that's left is the 366,000. That's what is carrying over in future years that you can use to do whatever you see is fit. So there's taxes, you can put money away into reserves. Or building maintenance, or some people are using it for special reserves. Just because of the fluctuation in the.
Yeah, that's that now.
260.
So 866 is what's left at the end of the day. Your total assets, which is what you have, with 1.5 million for the general fund, and then you have about $666,000 in monies that you can move. So 227 of that was payroll, and 165,000 was accounts payable, some bills that were paid in July and August. You can see at the top, it says major funds and non-major funds. So in the accounting standards, they want you to separate out what they consider major funds, which is if you take that $2.6 million number for the total and take 10% of it, anything that's in this upper part in major funds should exceed 10%. But it's based on liabilities and revenue and expenses all individually. So there might be some that have like the minor capital projects at $125,000. That might not be all based on the assets. It could be something else. So these are all your individual funds. Any questions on those? Page 7 outlines all the revenue and expenses. You can see at the end of the day, the second column from the right, that $7 million is what you took in for the year. You spent 7.5. So that reduced your fund balance by $490,000. So you go from 1.25 to 761,000. Something to keep in mind is you use money to reduce what you ask the taxpayer. So, yes, it shows that it's negative, but if you go to page 17. Your original budget and final budget, that balance at the top is $400,000. So that's what you plan to reduce your fund balance. So instead, you decreased it by $53,000. So. Better than anticipating. Any questions on the numbers?
Is that 366,000, is that what you said was about? To move forward?
Yep.
No, that's.
So that 366, just looking real quick right now, we'll confirm all this when we meet for our budget development workshop, but it appears that we only rolled 150 of that forward as revenue in FY 25, meaning that there's an additional 216,000 that we did not dip into. That could be theoretically rolled into FY 27, or the board could consider, as Rivet said, putting some of that into either a special ed reserve or into a capital reserve. Or you could do something along the lines of we've been budgeting money in the general fund the last couple of years of 50,000 for sped reserve. You could just put that in the sped reserve and move to budget again.
Right.
So it should help the FY, it will help the FY 27 budget. And in terms of the conversations that we've made a commitment to share with the town budget committee, et cetera, I think that extra 216,000. Beyond just the school committee and with the budget committee talking about how to balance those things would be an appropriate, kind of conversation to have early in the process.
Is that 216 in addition to the 366? Is that what you're-
We already committed 150 of the 366.
I'm sorry, you said it again?
We had already committed 150 to 366 when we get to FY 25.
Okay,
So what this audit is reporting is that in future years, we would be able to use 366, but we've only committed 150 of that so far.
Okay, so page 2, the auditor report. So because you're a department of the town, we can't issue a full audit report because not everything that is required to be in this audit is here.
Gotcha.
So as far as the numbers go, we're confident in that. It's just there's not other things that really don't matter to you guys. So the auditor's opinion is a qualified opinion, but it's only because we haven't presented the accrual basis. So that would be like fixed assets, debt, all those things haven't been presented in these financial statements. There's also not a management discussion and analysis, because you don't really need to, because the town takes care of that for you. So that's discussed on page 4, the emphasis will matter. And then on page 5 is the report that DOE likes to see, so they're looking at it to make sure that you adopted the budget, you're following the budget, and you're being in compliance with it, so that's the opinion on that. So, any other questions on the actual audit? Okay. And a little handout for everybody really about. Anything excited for? So what you get there is the last 10 years worth of expenses. So you can see with your regular instruction costs. Back in 2014, it was right around 2.2 million, and it hovered right around 2.2 million until COVID hit, and then it bumped up. So it went up to 2.4, and now it's at 2.7. Some of that is related to the tuition rate. Like with Lincoln Academy, you pay per student, so if you've got more students enrolled, your tuition expense is gonna be more. So that's part of the things. Special education. This isn't unusual, and most schools are seeing the same thing, so we went from 488,000 to now you're over a million. So that's. Becoming more common. Student and staff support was about 167,000, and then it jumped up to about 250, and it's hovered right around that. 290 area for the last 3 years. School admin. We started at 146, and now you've gone up to about 291,000. System admin, Howard right around 110 for years, and now it's at about 145. And then facilities maintenance, that kind of jumps around all over the place based on what you're doing with the school. So if you've got some bigger projects that go on, that will be included in there. In transportation and buses, a lot of that is based on the contract. So you can tell the years where you negotiated the contract. So that's right around 480 right now. Other expenses are just other things, your program expenses. So this is kind of wildly all over the place. And so you can see right around 2019, you picked up some of your special services. That's why that jumped there. 2020, a little bit of the same, but you're picking up some more COVID related money. And then you really jumped up in 21, you're at 1.5 million. Dropped back in 22, so a lot of that's that ESSER money. So we're spending a lot of that at one time, and now you're at that 1.2. So what do I expect for the next year? I'd expect it to drop back down somewhere in the same range of 22.
Okay.
School nutrition, so that's whatever the general fund had to put in, so you put in about $21,000. We've had a few good years, so it hasn't. You haven't had to put money in. On behalf payment, so that is a function of a couple different variables. One is the percentage of the employees' wages that the actuaries feel needs to be paid in order to cover that pension liability. And then the other part of that is your increase in wages.
Is there what?
Increase in wages.
Increase in business.
So you add more teachers, you increase the pay, is it collectively bargained? So that's why that's increasing. And then capital expenditures of about 400,000, so. I would expect that to be higher next year. So, any questions on the expenses?
Is there a copy of that, the expenses?
I gave all the copies open.
Okay.
All right. Any questions for Fred? Any more
I
questions?
guess
Yeah.
it feels like a stupid question, but what are program expenses, like, how's that break down? And like, that seems like the one that's increased the most.
Yep, so that is the federal monies. So the ESSER, you've got.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, so on that last page in the financial statements, you can see that there's ESSER and
Sorry, what page?
CRF, page 30. So typically through the years, that top section with the USDA, that holds fairly consistent. Because it's based on the number of meals that you serve. So if the number of meals go up, that will go up. So it's gone up some, but not as much. You have the CRF money, so that was spent in the prior year, so let's just cleaning that up. But then you look at the DOE, so the Title I, the 55,000 that was spent was pretty much your regular Title I program. So you always had that program in the school. Then you have the summer reallocation, so those additional monies that get reallocated so that you could spend more time with the kids in the summer. So that's not, that one was unusual. And then you look at your local entitlement, so your special education cluster. So that 67,000, that's a consistent program that's been around for ages. Preschool, same thing. And then you've got the American Rescue Plan. Money, so those are another $2,000. So that was about 70,000 you spent for local retirement, but then you get the other ones that are down below, so you get Title 2A, which is another one that has been around for a while. And you're always spending money out of that program. But then you have the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, so then you look at those and you've got about $2,000 in ESSER 1, 46,000 in ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 was 275. So that's where a lot of the jump has been. The other part that has increased is the Compass program. So that's included in there as well. That's why it's jumped up so much. Those
Thank
things.
you.
Is the Title I program like all detailed out on how those expenses are?
In the financials, they're just some,
They do summary.
yeah. The majority of Title I is salaries and things.
Like, pretty much one person.
Yeah.
One or two.
Yep, and mean PERS, you have
Do
to
you,
actually,
does it say like how much you get in Title I and how, what's the total
Yeah.
amount that comes from Title I?
it was what, 71,000 last year.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
Wow,
Covers about 1.5 ed tax with health insurance and so.
yeah, so not a special, not an interventionist teacher.
All right. There are no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I get on that, full cut.
You wanted to get out of here. All right. So moving right along with our agenda here. We have the next order of business would be an action on our minutes from October 2nd. Move to approve. I have a motion to approve the minutes and a second. Any discussion? All in favor to approve the October 2nd minutes? Who's the second? Becky. Thank you. Okay, chair's report. Our next regular school board meeting will be December 4th. We have our AOS report that Todd is going to give in June's stead.
Obviously, as you can imagine, the primary topic of discussion has been what's gonna happen next year. The AOS as a result of the ESC formation, so. They actually pushed the meeting back for November till next Wednesday, so that both the Bristol and the South Bristol School Boards would have a chance to meet. And make their decisions. So that's really what the talk revolved around. Initially, Peter decided to craft two different budgets, 4-town AOS budget and then 2-town AOS budgets, and obviously we'll focus on the 2-town one. Yeah, so that's what, that was the gist of their conversation. Oh, and they did extend my contract for 2 years. Thanks. But that was the only action they actually took at that meeting.
Any questions for Todd with the AOS? Okay. The next, right, so the next AOS meeting will be November 12th at the central office. And did you want to go to your superintendent's
I can
report?
do that right now. Yeah.
Great.
I'll go through it quick. On October 16th, we had our monthly Midcoast Superintendent's Association meeting. That's where all the superintendents from the Midcoast area get together over in MS 8040 at their central office. And the big topic of discussion has been professional development and the opportunity to collaborate between districts. So we did a kickoff this year with Brad Wishnick came, Wishnick. I wasn't tearing his name apart, but and all our staff went over and joined staff from the Midcoast that came to the auditorium. And I would say there was well received from all the feedback I got. I know people were a little hesitant because it was the day before students came back. But it was something that had been scheduled and the feedback was it was good. So we're talking about things like giving in districts like ours that are so small, you often have in your buildings, well, we all do, 1 3rd grade teacher, 1 4th grade teacher. So we're talking about bringing all the 3rd grade teachers from the region together to be able to have collaborative discussions and conversations. And same thing with content teachers when you get to the middle of it. So those are the topics that are going on with that group right now. And of course, we talked about all the policy changes and things of that nature. 18 met November 10th. We're planning a district-wide. They've done a great job planning a district-wide workshop on the 10th, which is Monday. I shared the agenda with all of you and the session descriptors and encouraged you if you're available to come, especially the keynote, I think would be good for you to hear. And staff are now selecting from there. We have 6 to 8 options each session. We do a keynote in the morning, then we do a morning session, then we have afternoon sessions. That'll be at Middleborough. And it'll be all the teachers from the 4 schools up there. We're currently reading a book, Rethinking Teacher Evaluation and Supervision by Kim Marshall. We currently do my Ronald model, Marshall is a different model, so the administrators are just doing a book, no intent to make any changes. We couldn't make changes, that would have to come from your professional, the PGPE committee. But it would give it's just an opportunity to see a different way of doing things. So as I said, we're currently doing the Mosaic model. We reviewed the assessment calendar, pretty much, I think, hammered down the fall assessment. Now we'll move on to then spring. And unfortunately, we started talking about school closure and what a town's gonna do, what a school's gonna do when they, when we have to cancel school. And it ranges from remote all the way through to a couple traditional days, then remote, to 3 traditional days and then remote. So it varies a little bit from each school to school. On the 16th and 17th, participated in a Drummond Woodson virtual training at the central office on Title IX. The first day, the Thursday, was geared towards your central office, your affirmative action officer primarily, and things of that nature. So Dominic, Patsy, and myself watched that one. And then on Friday, the 17th, it focused on the role of building administrators. So the building principals joined us and we watched it and they quizzed us. There were quizzes given to them. I think our team did pretty good on the quizzes. So proud of them. So that was a 2-day Title IX training. On October 22nd, I was in Augusta for the Maine School Superintendent's annual business meeting. And then for the 2 days after that, the 23rd and 24th, was the Maine School Management Fall Conference. So that's what I've been.
Any questions for Todd? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the principal report.
So we've got lots of fun things going on. October was busy. The PTO, it was wonderful to watch the PTO get inspired because the campground didn't have their trunk or treat. So there was, you have to do something. And within 10 days went from, sure, we're gonna do something on Friday, the 24th at school, but pulling it off. It was wonderful. They called it a boo bash. They used the cafeteria, set up stations and it was very well attended. It was definitely fun. So that was a fun thing that their inspiration and their get it done attitude was wonderful and really was impressed and a lot more, we want our parents participating. Fall sports ended well. The soccer team won the bustling league championship this year. Very exciting to have them meet in Lincolnville. Is that right? Yes.
Lincolnville, yeah.
Lost track of the last 2 years. It was too. So that was fun. Great group of kids, big group of kids. A lot of kids participated, which was real positive. The election day went well this week in the cafeteria. Really the only challenges, it was a busy day, even though there were just questions all about it after a lot of people coming and going. I think our only challenge really is the parking lot during bus drop. The mornings weren't too bad, the afternoon was hard. I think a lot of the people in our community have no idea how to navigate a school parking lot. And even the way our parking lot's set up, it's not like there's clear lines for the public if they're just driving. You take the left in the middle, the second, it just, you could watch every now and then during the day. Oh, and I think there were 1 or 2 collisions with a pole, nothing that hurt the pole, but we've been there before. Some of the office staff could probably share stories they didn't even tell me about. But I think looking to the next year, and I talked to Jess Warren briefly, in the future, if our elections are going to be a lot busier than what we saw this week, we would do a remote day.
Okay.
Because I think the impact on the traffic, the number of people that went to every exit, even though the doors said go to the cafeteria, you know,
Right.
it was just a busy site for trying to do all those things.
Could you do a half day? Would that be, or is that too much of a
I,
stunt?
I think if it was, obviously, if it's a presidential election, no way, we're just gonna
Okay.
have a remote day, because those are usually higher turnout elections. But I even had a staff member saying,
Right.
oh, people are actually canvassing for signatures, so it just felt strange for it to be the school parking lot, even though we weren't parked, and having public business, if you know, that just was a different feeling to try. But I think there'll be a balance depending on what, you know, really a conversation of what's anticipated on the ballot and what kind of crowd we're gonna get. But I got a good picture of, even somebody the other day said, well, why wouldn't they just do it at the town hall again? I said, if you saw the number of cars just during the times and knowing driving through the mills, like, where did people park years ago?
Yeah.
Like that's insane. So I get it. We'll make it work for the town with that.
Yeah, Jess told me she loved it, so,
And the cafeteria space, I think, would work really well.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's a
sure.
really nice space
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah,
I had a
it's
great
good.
experience.
Yay.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So, we'll just plan remote days as needed for election days and IPV there, so. No, that was a win, it went well. So hiring update, we started the year with less ed techs than we had anticipated because of changes over the summer, and just, this week. We're able to start somebody in a special education ed tech 3 role. It's been wonderful so far, very fortunate to have found anybody. And I think for now, we always would say, hey, if there's more, but we're hitting the point too, where your capacity to find time for kids to access things is just part of the challenge, you know, there are enough hours in the school day, right, for everything you want to offer. But I think barring new needs showing up that aren't anticipated, we are, you know, mostly good spot. Correction programming, so remote days versus snow days, Todd referenced that. You know, we've done a lot of different things because of construction over the past, 5 years between COVID, getting used to doing remote to really planning on some remote days because of the project, but I've spoken to the staff and I looked at the calendar and talked to Todd. It looks like what we'd like to do is another hybrid this year. Last year, the hybrid was to start with remote days and then go to snow days if we didn't, at some point, we didn't have that. I think we had 1 or 2 snow days last year. It was very minimal.
Extreme days, yeah.
So the plan right now is to have 2 traditional snow days. So the first time you get the call, everybody's just home. Like there's no remote expectation. We don't have to worry about sending meals. We don't have to worry about collecting, remote packets. Same for the second day of a storm, and after that, we would switch to remote, and the reason to do that is the last school day right now is a Friday, the 12th, with a workshop day on Monday, the 15th. If you add 2 more days of these snow days to it, then the last student day is the Tuesday and the staff day Wednesday. That Friday is Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So if you get too close to that and you actually have to push people to like a last day on the 23rd, it just starts, whether it's staff or students, you're not getting quality time. It drags on too long. So that's our recommendation. So that, and who knows, this year you might get 130, you might get, we'll see what happens, Todd.
She'll see.
You might get a lot. So. Then just updates, obviously, some of you have heard about our 7th graders building that bateau with Rob Stevens and the Historical Society sponsoring that work. Very excited folks. We're hoping to have a launch. I think Jody Batchelder was looking at the Monday of Thanksgiving week, but I haven't heard back. She's trying to kind of find. They're trying to guess, will the boat be ready, and, looking at some other factors, so that's our goal. The 3rd to 5th grade after school Richmond Club that Amber Waltz had spearheaded this year is going well. She's already bugging me to plan a meeting so we can say, hey, how are we gonna do the next round? And what are we gonna think about for next year? If we want to expand this, how do we, fund the after school coordinator person to do more if that's something we want to do. So you'll hear more from me on that end, but definitely seems to be a very successful kickoff so far, with volunteers and the number of kids participating. And then, again, plenty of field trips. parent-teacher conferences are happening. PKK has already done theirs, and then grades 1 through 8 are the next 2 weeks. We finished our fall testing, and you saw Jeff was here to talk about Lincoln Academy last night. I think it was last night, right? But their
Yeah, last night.
8th grade, graders could go, and one of the teachers had asked the kids, and I think out of our 13 kids, all but one, I think, went, and some of our, I would say a lot of our families, it's kid number 2 or 3 that would be going to high school. So, one of the ones that didn't go has had, many older siblings, so mom's probably like, no. But it was great to have that much participation. It's happening, so they're very positive. And then looking ahead, this leading early learning fellowship, right?
Yes,
Chris is involved in that with Allison Sawyer.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's going fabulous. Actually, we were down, we've been doing some coursework throughout the week virtually with a cohort throughout the state, and 2 weeks ago, we went to the statewide early childhood conference down in Portland. Amazing.
And so related to that is, you've probably heard before, the Child Development Services is shifting the special ed services for 3 and 4-year-olds over the next 2 years. Is that 2 years? It's a deadline they're saying now, will be the responsibility of the Department of Ed, which means public schools.
Yeah.
So we've been talking to Dominic Capazzi, our special ed director, but also connecting with other resources locally to find out when our transition for the 3 and 4-year-olds for special education. This isn't, and I'll just clarify, we said this to staff yesterday, by adding a 3 and 4-year-olds programming for special services to our responsibility list, which is going to happen anyway. But by doing that, doesn't mean you're opening a full-time preschool room for full-time 3-year-olds coming to public school. That's not some people immediately think that's what that means. There's a lot to it. Chris and I are, working with Allison and the rest of our special ed staff to figure out, get a group together and really learn how to get that kicked off and possibly try to start with 4-year-olds next year. That's our hope, but we have to get on the list and figure out how to make that happen.
But what does that mean, the 3? Doesn't that mean that some 3-year-old?
It means that students who are eligible for special services, rather than having CDS so CDS employees come to Bristol School and service our 4-year-olds. So our special ed department doesn't go into the pre-K room and do those things. What that would mean for next year is our special ed staff or people we are responsible for hiring will case manage and oversee the kids in our 4-year-old program. But then the 3-year-olds, we would be responsible for making sure they have services. So those families can bring their kids here for their speech or their specially designed instruction. But there is often a regular ed component to those programs. So there may be that there's 6 hours a week of regular programming where 3-year-olds are brought in for, a learning session and then they get picked up and brought home. That of parents, that kind of thing. We've seen different models that are happening, and we'll find out more. So, but it does not mean full-time 3-year-old schooling at Bristol School. That's that some people who have no idea when you say special services, what that means, assume that.
so there's some flexibility for the school to determine what that programming looks
The
like.
transition to what the deadline is for 2 years from now, there is you can choose to do nothing, you can choose to take just where you're do a pilot of 3 and 4 for next year. Some schools are piloting now. I think last year was the first year to pilot, this is the second year. So we're the special services part. So I think we're fine. Some of our Bristol staff and started at least with 4-year-olds for next year to kind of start basically get used to where we're headed and be prepared. And the 4-year-olds are already in our building. They're already getting services through CDS employees here. So yeah, just pick up the base.
thank you. Any questions for Jen? They're filming the 7th graders doing the boat thing?
They're doing some filming, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's for like,
So-
is that PB?
So
Is that?
Jody sent a lot of emails to a bunch of us, and they're trying to I think they have main PBI, no, PBS, that's me. That's a school term, main TBS,
Right.
folks trying to work, they're working on a documentary
Oh, okay.
around the bateau.
Yeah.
I don't think Bristol School and that bateau is the only focus of
Oh,
their piece, but I lose track, because there's a lot of them with a lot of excitement, stuff. As and they were waiting for grant money for parts of it, so they're very enthusiastic about making the 250th anniversary of the, different parts of the revolution and this mission, and
Yeah.
so
Okay.
we're a part of that excitement.
Okay.
So
Nice.
cool, yeah. I hope to invite the seventh graders with the teachers and some people involved to a board meeting to share what they're learning and what they've done.
Right.
When we get closer to the end, so they can have time to do a culmination of it, so. Because
Perfect.
they can speak more eloquently about it than I. Like I will invite Mr. Mullen and Mr. Flowers and those folks to come speak, because every time they go, they're learning more that.
Mhm.
I would say, I got coverage for your room so you can go, I have a bus, but they're the ones learning all the cool stuff.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, moving right along. Finance report.
Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this brief because it's quite substantive and I can keep this brief. The FY or the construction projects, we've been talking about those for a while, trying to get a final clear out of the big construction project that we did often. On September 18th, Andy Jackson, with the authorization of this board, presented a closeout offer to Optimum. They have not replied. They replied, they'll take a look at it. And Andy has followed up repeatedly with them. And it's now November, I believe it's the 6th. And they haven't budgeted a September 18th offer. At the beginning of this week, I asked Andy to reach out to Liz Jumani, our construction lawyer, John Woodson, and see if it was appropriate to give them a deadline. And Andy was able to meet with her today, and they are preparing to give them a pretty urgent deadline on Monday. And or they're still discussing whether that's the best day, but that's in works right now between Andy and John Woodson, trying to say you can't just hold on to this forever. However, there isn't while the process for settling this all up is detailed in the contract, there wasn't a time period that it had to be done. But it's in Optimum's interest to settle it because we're sitting on their money.
Yeah.
And money's earning interest in our bank account right now, so it's kind of unclear to us why they would want to have any motivation to drag this out. So what it does hold us up from doing is just knowing how much money we're gonna end up with in the end, because we have to settle this. If they don't respond to the deadline, we're gonna move it into mediation, which is not gonna be to their advantage. So I expect them to kind of pick up the pieces now and get back to us. So we have a lot of things that we wanted to present when that information is ready, so that we can say, this is how much is left from the construction bond. This is how much interest has, accrued on it. This is how much the school committee obligated out of the FY 25 funds to do different projects. And this is how we're gonna get all these projects done with these different pockets of money. We were hoping to have all that ready for tonight, but without Optimum's reply, we're gonna ask that we present that at the beginning of a budget development workshop that I know you're gonna try to schedule here. So that's where that is. In terms of the report that I've given you tonight, at the end of the month of October, Jen and John and my team have all kind of gone through this, and we learned a few things about the data and the finances. And I'll explore them. One of the things we talked about, the only thing that we were really concerned about when I presented the end of the month last month was that we had seen this jump of 7 students in secondary, which was a cause for concern because that's about $100,000 in additional revenue or additional expenditures that we didn't budget on. And I projected that same number in here because as when we prepared this report earlier today, that's still the number that I'm being given as the secondary enrollment. Jeff Burrows presented a different number tonight to you, and so I started going through spreadsheets that are kept in the central office of secondary enrollment, I believe there's an error in there. And reached out to people in the team that keep that number accurate for us and asked them to double check it. So I don't want to say that the $100,000 is definite. I believe that I found that it was just an elevated number. But I'll get back to you on that urgently. Jen and I have been watching that number and how it might affect all the, regular ed cost center and all the other different cost centers. And it'll be a big relief if we find out that the enrollment figures are wrong at the central office. So I'm chasing that down. Another thing that we've experienced, and we spent quite a bit of time with this last couple of weeks, we're really in a sort of a funnel, solving other problems, getting down to this one over during the whole migration of Afterfund. We were having trouble with encumbrances, and we noticed here that all our encumbrances for health insurance were really much higher than they should be. We began to talk about that and why and investigate that, and brought it to the Afterfund user group meeting this week and discussed it with, there's now 60 school districts that are at that meeting. And as soon as we mentioned health insurance encumbrances don't seem accurate, it was like this, the conference call just blew up. Everybody said, mine aren't right either, mine aren't right, what's going on here? And 60 of us discussed it and got drilled down with some Afterfund people and learned that, just real quick, the employees pay their share of the health insurance in every paycheck. But we only pay the employer part once a month. And we believe, and it seems that we're going through now to fix this. It seems that Afterfund doesn't know the difference between once a month and every paycheck, so it's essentially doubling the employer contributions and encumbering them as if they're happening every single paycheck and not just once a month. So I removed all health insurance encumbrances. There are no health insurance encumbrances in here because I don't believe that they are accurate. What I'm getting at is that those two things, health insurance encumbrances and potentially inflated enrollment from secondary, were giving us a very scary picture. And I no longer believe that picture to be accurate, but it's a little bit premature for me to tell you that I now know what the result is.
Okay.
But I think that we're nailing this down right now. Jen and I have looked at everything else. What we're trying to determine is how much money we should spend for what we budgeted on facilities out of this facilities budget. But as I said earlier, there's all these other pockets of facilities money that have already been appropriated and taxes have been paid to support this stuff. So there's money there that taxpayers have contributed and asked the school committee to pay for facilities. We just want to be able to determine which pot to take out. So this is an ongoing process. Jen and John and I agreed prior to this meeting that we're not going to meet once a week about the construction stuff, and try to get the information from Auckland one way or the other, and press it with either through mediation or through our attorney so that we can resolve this. We have begun working on your FY27 budget. Jen and I and Todd and I are working on budgets in general, and Jen and I are working on this one, and John's involved in this facilities piece of this one, what we're gonna do with next year's projects. And we've been doing all that work, and we've also been again finding all the other issues that we want to kind of present into this, the work that goes on in preparing the data for the budget process. And we're eager to start that with you. And as Darren knows, I asked if we could set a date for a budget development workshop so that we can present a preliminary draft the first week of December, hopefully before your December 4th, is it, meeting? That you would have on the Thursday and first.
December 4th.
So if we could meet for second and third, that would kind of work well with the flow of the other budgets that we're working on in the AOS. And it's just enough time for Jen to get her piece together in the school. And it's time for me to get that, then we could have a public presentation at the first of your December meeting of where things are lining up.
Okay.
I'd also ask, as I've said at previous meetings, that we reach out to the budget committee early and share with them information about how the construction project ended, how the new we found because the FY23 audit the indication of 16,000 additional money that can be rolled over in some way. and engage them in that conversation, because I think they've expressed a serious desire to be looped in on all that. I want to make sure that we're honoring that. So it'd be great if the school committee could also reach out to the town and say, when would the budget committee be able to, you know, kind of begin talking with us? And then I would be able to, you know, map all up the budget calendar that involves them and involves all the final steps. But I would like to have a preliminary draft by your December meeting, with your help by having a budget development workshop before. So that's where the different pieces in finance stand. And I'll just leave it to you to schedule the meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Peter about what you presented?
It's kind of odd that they would suddenly, instead of doing it monthly, start doing it more often with those payments.
Well, we've always done, I think the thing is that we have paid monthly the employer contribution to Anthem forever, right?
Right, yeah.
Apt Fund's a new software system though, and we're learning that it doesn't know the things we've done forever. It only thinks in its own terms. And even though, you know, the Apt Fund implementation manager that they sent to us said, well, you can do it this way. I think they were wrong.
But the money is still here, just that it's showing as if it's been.
We're sure we're encumbering money. We're setting too much money aside. We're not spending it.
Yeah.
But if you encumber it, you're saying, we've obligated these funds, but we haven't really obligated them. The system just thinks we've obligated them twice instead of once.
Instead of one.
It's doubling the employer contribution. So I'm glad John trusts hearing all this, because I'm about to ask him to help me guide them.
That's
For the budget workshop.
he's like, it seems like 101, you know?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
It's,
like after.
it feels good that we're getting down to the source of the problem, rather than just wondering why the data seems off.
Very true, yeah.
But,
Got the right direction.
yeah.
You are. Okay. After 11, any of those 3 days?
Monday you could do it at any time. Tuesday, Wednesday, we have to be at 11.
You wanna do a Monday? Can you do a Monday meeting, the first? Yeah, Monday meeting.
Sure.
And you said earlier the better, like. what time?
Yeah.
9 on the first,
Sure.
Budget workshop at, just voted, that's a lot.
central office,
Office has a good.
So December 1st,
December 1st.
9 AM.
9 AM.
So Todd, you make sure that it's more, we're posted. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect,
Chunk of the day.
Thanks very much.
thank you,
And Darren, do you want to reach out to the budget committee then?
absolutely, yeah,
And,
Yep.
yeah,
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
What?
wait,
I'm gonna reach out, it'll be a surprise, no. No, I mean, it seems like after we have our workshop, I'll reach out to them, you know, once I know, so it'll be after the first.
And that's December 1st, and that's only within 2-3 days of your next meeting.
Right,
But it could be after the next meeting.
but yeah, it could
Where
be,
do we get to the budget, after you, before your meeting, or when do we?
well, what, I think what I'll do first is just reach out and give the budget committee the information I have with regards to our construction fund update and the carry forward that we've been talking about, things like that. And then probably after our December meeting, I'll have our budget, so it'll be after the 4th.
We don't have an organization yet for this coming year, so
This,
obviously your contact will be Rachel. That's all I'm trying to.
Yes.
You.
I'll contact Rachel.
Thank you.
Are you on the committee?
Yeah.
Nice. They're lucky to have you. Okay,
Very good spirit, with that, yes,
what's that?
I'll bring up some questions.
Okay, all right. Perfect. So no more questions for Peter. Facilities and maintenance report.
Things are going well, still working a few bugs out here and there on some of the construction project, but we're getting there and most of that is ironed out. The generator is in production. So it's in line, it's probably looking like sometime the 1st of March for delivery.
Okay,
The groundwork is completed, the conduit is all in the ground and the slab has been poured. So basically, we're waiting for a generator to arrive and set it on the slab. So we're gonna make the progress.
okay.
And the old one still works, they needed it
The old one's
on
still,
Tuesday, election day was dark for them.
Right, yeah, you got less
But
power.
if whoever hit a pole, I guess up the road or something.
Yeah.
Called John, so which work, everything?
I guess I know the new classrooms that my kids were in had great light, so. Any questions for John? No? Thanks. Get off easy. Ooh, Bristol South Bristol Restructuring Committee. Emil, you wanna?
Yeah. Well, finally, after a number of months, we've done it. Well, actually, we haven't. When we vote tonight, we will have done it. But South Bristol has voted to withdraw and to form an ESC with us. And when we vote, if we vote tonight, we will, then we will form an ESC and we have a withdrawal plan to take ourselves out of the AOS. And it's been a fun trip. But I think it's worked out pretty well under the circumstances. And whenever we're ready, we can.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make some motions that were, copied from the South Bristol meeting. So I'm gonna present two motions. One's about withdrawing from the AOS. And the other is to approve the proposed interlocal agreement. So if you have any questions, we can talk about it in this discussion. So I'm gonna make this motion that I move that we notify the AOS 93 board of our intent to withdraw from AOS 93 on or before June 30th, 2026, in accordance with the withdrawal process outlined in the AOS 93 interlocal agreement, section 15, and that we form a withdrawal subcommittee empowered to negotiate with the AOS 93 board to finalize the withdrawal plan. So that's my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I guess it's up to you guys, because any questions?
Nothing additional.
Okay, if not, if then all in favor? Motion carries. Great. Okay, my second motion. I move that the Bristol Consolidated School having received approval from the Commissioner of Education, hereby approve the proposed interlocal agreement for the formation and joining as a founding member of the South Bristol School of the Johns Bay Coastal Alliance. The Bristol School Board commits to the terms outlined in the JBCA interlocal agreement.
Second.
That's okay, so that's the motion, and then so I have a second. Any discussion?
Have any changes been made to the document since we saw it last meeting? No, I saw any.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
It was submitted to the, right, we showed it to y'all. We submitted it to the DOE. If you want, John can speak to his experience.
Yeah, the only thing that was altered, since I think your last meeting was the shift in the percentage of the
Oh, right.
part one of the shared, cost sharing formula.
Mhm.
So, it changed, we initially proposed 50% of the first half of the cost of the ESC to be split equally. And we changed that so that South Bristol pays 60% as opposed to 60%, and you guys pay 40% of that first initial 50% of the ESC cost.
And we do
Is that
some
the other way
extended
around?
discussion, but could you just recap the?
Yeah, so there's two parts to the cost sharing formula. There's the first part, which is 50% of the ESC cost.
Mhm.
And then we would, so the first part of the formula splits that first half the initial proposal was equally. And we altered that to, have South
Yeah.
Bristol pay 60% and Bristol pay 40%.
Sorry, but what was the reason behind that? Could you?
The reason was the intent to shift it was for South Bristol to be, in a more equitable, pay more, a more equitable percentage of the total ESC costs.
Okay.
Because the second half of that formula is based on student population, and we have a significantly less, fewer students. And so by shifting the first part for South Bristol to pay 60%, it made that more equal.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? All right. All in favor? Motion carries.
Now I could say we did it.
Yeah, and great thanks goes to the restructuring committee. I was on the restructuring committee, but I joined late, so
It was
mostly a
very productive committee. It really was. It was a pleasure working with everybody.
You done now? Are you, it's the end of the committee?
Yeah, so now, right, so now the restructuring committee basically dissolves and we have an ESC. What do you call it, board or / steering committee. That will be involved with meeting with the AOS and hiring, executive director, superintendent, all that stuff, yes. So,
You said working with the AOS to hire.
well, no, we're gonna be working with the AOS in order to like migrate all of the information from the AOS so that we can house that information here. Those types of things, just like what Great Salt may do.
The technical term for what that is to negotiate a withdrawal plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Negotiate with, yeah. Yeah.
You're in a mode now to start hiring an executive director.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. Yeah, because so now this is where the rubber meets the road. Basically, we gotta hire all these people so they can enact what the restructuring committee has presented to the board. And so the board is wanting to make this concrete. Okay.
Who pays for that?
I believe it comes out of our budget, yeah.
So we're hiring people, DSC director and a superintendent. So we'll have to pay for them for the rest of the year.
No, we pay for them when they start work.
Right.
When they start.
They start July 1st,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ready to go, and they've got someone to get their
Yeah,
grab one saw. That's the plan. I'm so that's the plan. I'm just trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's why the boards need to meet.
Yeah.
Work out.
we gotta start working out,
Yeah.
meeting.
They haven't had the chance to have that conversation yet.
Yeah.
You're on, that's the one you can't talk about.
Good.
So I don't know if did South Bristol, did they talk about meeting just?
No, the first thing that will have to happen will be the boards, the two school boards will meet as an ESC board.
Right.
And form subcommittees to work on the withdrawal plan to negotiate. And there'll be a subcommittee for hiring, a hiring committee. And we'll put job posts, that committee will put job postings out for anticipated openings. In the future, and start getting applications in for that.
John, they do that. They will have a quorum of the AOS 93 board. How do you get around that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
They'll have a quorum of the AOS 93 board. Both boards, if they're there, will have a quorum of both boards. How are you navigating around that?
In a full ESC meeting, there will be a quorum of both boards, that's right. Yep, so there'll have to be public notice and all that sort of thing.
Yep. Does that mean you have to be present for those or?
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm new to all of this. I haven't been following it. So does that mean you're also gonna have like a director of special ed, a curriculum director?
Yeah,
All of that, and then will payroll just be, all of that? I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, some of the, there's going to be some overlap. The superintendent will be the curriculum director. We'll have a special ed person, solo special ed person. And yeah,
Okay.
we have a breakdown. If you look on the AOS 93 website, again, there's there.
I looked for it.
There's a slide presentation.
There is, okay.
And it's also on the town website too, and also the school website. The school website. Yeah, of course, yeah. School website. Yeah, there's a slide presentation, and there's a slide that has a breakdown of what like what the restructuring committee proposed
Okay.
as for employees.
Okay, comment.
Where will that staff be housed?
Most likely here.
Here.
Yeah, because we have this, the
Yeah,
Bristol space, yeah.
What is the timeline for having the ESC board meeting? Are we looking to do that before?
What time?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, yeah, whenever,
Very soon.
Okay.
Very soon.
Yes.
yeah, so we'll have to be in touch about calendars availability, and so
Anyway, that video would be before Thanksgiving,
before Thanksgiving,
Yes.
okay.
but not tomorrow.
Okay.
You know,
So all of this will go into that budget proposal, right, that you guys are talking about earlier?
right,
Yes,
Yeah.
it'll be going to our annual budget,
Right.
yep, absolutely,
There's a lot to do in a couple of weeks.
yes. We can do it, all right. Any other information, any other business with that? No, correspondence, communication, old business, new business, school cancellations. Yeah, was that just informing us of the plan?
That's what Jim was.
Okay, so just to recap, that's 2 snow days and then after that remote.
So were you looking for the board to get that blessing with that?
Sure.
You guys want to make a motion just to,
I make a motion that we support the decision of the principal and staff to have 2 snow days.
A second.
And, okay, Catherine, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Got it. Okay, policies.
yep, I'm just gonna give you, the other 2 of the towns that, these, policies at first, we have 3 policies I'm gonna ask you to look at. One is a building temperature policy, which John's been nice enough to go through and take one from, did you get Cape Elizabeth or something? Someone's, and he's gone through and done some highlighting in it, so you'll see some stuff highlighted in yellow. When the policy first came out, it was pretty strict, it was saying exact temperatures and things like that. They've allowed it now to be much more flexible. So that we'll, and it's primarily for hot temperatures, not just like cold, but, so I'll give that to. That's it down. So we'll talk, that's one of them, so if you could look that over.
Okay,
And then just if you have any questions, what I will do is I will take these and I will bring them back to you for first read at your next meeting.
okay,
A couple of my other schools actually have a policy committee that meets to do that.
right.
You do not, so I will just take them. I'm meeting with their policy committee, so rather than reinventing the wheel, I'll probably wait and see what comes out of those policy committee meetings and then bring that to you for your first read. So we got, so we got building temperature.
Building temperature,
Jefferson is the model.
I believe,
Sure you get it.
I believe. This isn't from Jefferson, this was the
Well,
first.
it's John's draft.
Oh, okay,
what
John's
Jefferson
draft,
will use. This is just a draft you to look at.
Okay.
So that's building temperature one, we have a CICJ cell phone policy that has to be in place. The temperature one needs to get in ASAP.
Okay,
The cell phone one you have until August to do, but while we're doing them, we might as well do them all. And then I also have one in there, Jen, and I spoke, security camera systems. And so you have a policy and a procedure
okay,
to look over for those 2 as well. Whatever you bring back to me, I'll sit down with Jen, go over it with her, and then bring you a first read. At your next meeting.
okay. Great. Questions on the policies?
Just reach out to me, just send me an email.
All right.
Let's send you some.
Any future board topics folks are interested in?
I think you got plenty on your plate.
a lot.
Bathroom paint colors?
Yeah.
No, they're great, they're fine. All right, public comment.
That's just, did I take this one?
Da-da-da-da.
I'll pass, but plenty of comments, but,
But
keep going and we'll.
Okay.
fill in the blanks.
you bet, we'll do it for you, Chuck. All right, well then, if there's nothing further, without objection, I would declare this meeting adjourned.
At 7:06.
Perfect.
Thanks to the respect bank for